Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the channel. And today I'm going to do my review of AEW's Revolution. Starting off the evening, we'll go to our first match of the night. It is Eddie Kingston versus Chris Jericho. Number one, this was a great opening matchup for Revolution. Back and forth matchup between both Eddie Kingston and Chris Jericho. Eddie Kingston ends up hitting a half and half on Jericho. Eddie was keeping the pace throughout the entire match. Eddie and Jericho both exchanged devastating chops in the middle of the ring. Jericho then hits a suplex off the apron on Eddie Kingston. Jericho then also hits a lion salt on Eddie Kingston as well. Jericho then applies his signature walls of Jericho on Eddie. Eddie then breaks the hold. Eddie then hits a spinning back fist on Jericho. Jericho then gets up, hits a code breaker on Eddie Kingston. But Eddie ultimately applies a submission on Chris Jericho, and your winner of the match is Eddie Kingston. After the match, though, Eddie Kingston says that he respects Jericho. He ends up extending his hand out to Jericho. Jericho does not shake his hand, and then he leaves the ring. A couple of things I'm going to say about this matchup, man. Number one, this was a great opening matchup for Revolution, like I had said. And to be honest with you, I'm happy that Eddie Kingston won this matchup, man. All the promos that Jericho was cutting on Eddie Kingston, saying that he thought he was a jobber and that he can't win the big one. This was the match for Eddie Kingston to win, and he finally gets an opportunity to win the big one and beat a guy like Chris Jericho, who's been a notable name in professional wrestling for many, many, many years. So, hats off to Eddie Kingston for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Red Dragon versus Jurassic Express versus the Young Bucks for the AEW Tag Team Championships. Number one, this was a good matchup. Back and forth matchup with all teams involved, with Red Dragon predominantly keeping the pace in this matchup. But Jurassic Express ultimately hit the finish, pins for the 3, and your winners of the match, and still AEW Tag Team Champions, are the Jurassic Express. Hats off to the Jurassic Express for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is the face of the Revolution ladder match. It is Keith Lee versus Ricky Starks versus Wardlow versus Will Hobbs versus Christian Cage versus Orange Cassidy. Number one, great match. Back and forth match with everybody involved. Wardlow ends up sending Keith Lee and Will Hobbs off the stage onto the tables, which was absolutely brutal. Danhausen is here. Wardlow then goes to hit a powerbomb on Ricky Starks, which was absolutely brutal. It looked like Ricky Starks really got hurt pretty bad on that powerbomb. But Wardlow ends up climbing the ladder, grabbing the brass ring, and your winner of the match and moving on to challenge for the TNT Championship is Wardlow. Hats off to Wardlow for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we have a Tony Schiavone announcement. Tony Schiavone talks about AEW acquiring a new talent, and that new talent is none other than Shane Swerve Strickland. That is correct. Shane Strickland ends up signing a deal with AEW. The fans went absolutely insane for Shane showing up at AEW. And honestly, myself, man, I cannot wait to see what Shane does in AEW. I think AEW fits right in his wheelhouse and how they wrestle. And honestly, I can't wait to see what Shane does in AEW when he makes his official in-ring debut for AEW. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It's for the TBS Championship. It is Jade Cargill defending her TBS Championship against Ty Conti. I thought this was a good matchup. Back and forth match between both Jay and Ty Conti, with Jade predominantly keeping the pace throughout the match. And Jade ultimately hits the finish on Ty Conti, pinning her for the 3, and your winner of the match, and still TBS champion, is Jade Cargill, not Ty Conti. Hats off to Jade for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is the dog collar match. It is MJF versus CM Punk. The one thing I'll say about this matchup was really cool was, MJF came down to the ring. Well, it's supposed to be CM Punk. His music ended up hitting. And then all of a sudden it changed to MJF's music. MJF walks down to the ring, pretty much playing mind games with the crowd and CM Punk. MJF makes his way down to the ring. And then CM Punk's music hits, and it's a completely different song, entrance music that we're used to. And you see CM Punk coming down to the ring wearing his Ring of Honor gear that he wore in Ring of Honor, and the music that he was using in Ring of Honor, paying a little, homage, if you will, to his time in Ring of Honor, which I thought was really, really cool. The match itself, fantastic matchup. Back and forth match between both MJF and CM Punk, with Punk pretty much keeping the pace throughout the entire match. Punk ended up getting busted open in this match, though. MJF applies a Fujihara armbar on CM Punk, but Punk reverses it into a roll-up. Punk then hits a tombstone on MJF on the apron. That was absolutely brutal. MJF then pulls out a bag of tacks. MJF then hits a suplex off the top rope on Punk on top of the tacks. It looked absolutely brutal. Punk then hits a GTS on MJF. MJF then asks for Wardlow to come down to the ring to give him the Dynamite Diamond ring. Wardlow can't find it, but he ends up finding the ring for CM Punk. He places the ring on the apron. Punk ends up picking the ring up, hitting MJF with the Dynamite Diamond ring, pinning him for the 3, and your winner of the match is CM Punk. Hats off to CM Punk for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Thunder Rosa versus Britt Baker for Baker's AEW Women's Championship. First thing I'll say about this matchup, it was a good matchup. It was very hard to follow anything after what MJF and CM Punk did in that dog collar match. But the one thing I will take away from this match was the AEW Women's Championship. It looked like it got a makeover. And honestly, the championship looks fantastic. I mean, it looks great. And I think they changed it based upon how the TBS Championship looked. I think the new AEW Women's Championship is absolutely great. It looks more prestigious. The match itself, like I said, was a good matchup. Back and forth matchup between both Rosa and Baker, with Baker keeping the pace throughout the match. Rosa then hits a tombstone on Baker, but Baker ends up hitting a curb stomp using the belt with the referee being distracted. And then Baker ultimately hits another curb stomp on Thunder Rosa, pinning her for the 3, and your winner of the match, and still AEW Women's Champion, is Britt Baker. Hats off to Britt Baker for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is Jon Moxley versus Bryan Danielson. Number one, I thought this was a great matchup. Back and forth matchup between both Moxley and Danielson, with Danielson keeping the pace of the match. Moxley was busted open in this matchup. Again, like I said, they were both pretty much back and forth throughout the entire match, with Danielson predominantly keeping the pace. But Moxley ends up hitting a roll-up somehow on Danielson, pinning him for the 3, and your winner of the match is Jon Moxley. After the match, though, seemed like Moxley and Danielson was still kind of disgruntled with the whole match and how it went down. They ended up exchanging in the middle of the ring, and then all of a sudden we see none other than William Regal running down to the ring, slapping both Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson, saying this is not how we do things, saying that he was kind of their mentor from their WWE days, obviously. And it does look like, number one, it was great to see William Regal, but like I said, are we getting a stable finally with Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson? Is William Regal going to be in control of that stable? And how does William Regal fit into the fold with AEW? What are they going to do with William Regal? And what is going to happen next now that Jon Moxley beat Bryan Danielson? Are they going to join up? Who knows? I definitely want to see what happens between Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson, especially now that William Regal's into the fold. I definitely want to see how that plays out next. But hats off to Jon Moxley for getting the win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is the Andrade Hardy Family Office versus Sammy Guevara, Sting, and Darby Allin. Number one, the Darby Allin video package before the match got started was absolutely fantastic. The match itself was a great match. Back and forth matchup with both teams. Guevara and Sting and Darby Allin were keeping the pace of the match. Mark Quinn gets involved, ends up attacking Guevara with a chair. HFL then attacks Darby Allin and Sting. Guevara then hits a Spanish fly off the stage on Isaiah Cassidy through a table that looked absolutely brutal. Sting then hits a splash off the balcony on Andrade through a set of tables. And then Darby Allin ends up hitting the coffin drop. Pins for the 3, and your winners of the match are Sammy Guevara, Sting, and Darby Allin. Hats off to Sammy Guevara, Sting, and Darby Allin for getting a win in this matchup. Moving on from that, we go into our next match of the night. It is the main event of AEW Revolution. It is Adam Page defending the AEW World Heavyweight Championship against Adam Cole. Number one, fantastic matchup. Adam Cole's gear coming down to the ring, paying a little homage to Halo. That was kind of cool. The match itself, back and forth matchup between both Page and Cole, with Page keeping the pace of the match. Page then hits a devastating pump-up powerbomb on Adam Cole. Page then hits a moonsault, but is met with a super kick by Adam Cole, which was absolutely devastating. Page then hits a dead eye on Cole. Red Dragon is here. Cole then hits a Panama Sunrise on Page. Page then gets up, hits a dead eye off the apron on Adam Cole. And then Page ultimately hits the finish on Adam Cole, pinning him for the 3, and your winner of the match, and still AEW World Heavyweight Champion, is Adam Page. Couple of things I'm going to say about this before I get out of here. Number one, Revolution by far has been the best pay-per-view AEW's put together since their existence. I mean, this pay-per-view was absolutely phenomenal. And to be honest with you, them acquiring Shane Strickland, I can't wait to see him make his in-ring debut for AEW. And the biggest one for me was William Regal. I mean, the things that William Regal has done for NXT. How does William Regal fit into the fold with AEW, like I had said? Are they making a stable with Jon Moxley and Bryan Danielson teaming up, which I think would be absolutely just insane. If someone would have told me that, 10 years ago, I would have been like, no shot. No way. Absolutely not. Then you have William Regal into the fold and, him slapping Bryan Danielson, slapping Jon Moxley. I don't know how this is going to play out. Also Tony Khan acquiring Ring of Honor. I'm sure a lot of people are wondering if, William Regal will go over to Ring of Honor and be the head booker for Ring of Honor. I think if that were to be the case, I'm not against that at all. I think it'd be absolutely fantastic, especially the things that he did with NXT. I can only imagine what he can do with the roster that's on AEW and Ring of Honor. I mean, it'd be absolutely insane. But the matches on this card were phenomenal. Eddie Kingston getting that big win on Jericho was huge. Obviously, the tag team matchup with Red Dragon, Jurassic Express, and the Young Bucks, fantastic matchup. The other thing I want to say too, man, is the buy-in. The buy-in was really, really good, man. For what it's worth, it was definitely. It didn't seem like a buy-in. It seemed like it was a Rampage episode. I mean, you had the House of Black in that 6-man tag team match against Pac, Penta, and Eric Redbeard. It was a fantastic matchup. I mean, the exchanges that were going on in the ring between, Penta and Buddy Matthews was absolutely insane, man. I'm very happy that Buddy Matthews is in AEW. House of Black is one of my favorite stables in AEW. And, hats off to Malachi Black, man. He's done a fantastic job since he's been with AEW. So, I'm definitely excited for what's the future for House of Black. And like I said, I'm just excited for even Dynamite this week. There's rumors that Jeff Hardy might show up this week. I know Cesaro's name's been floating around a lot since he's left WWE. And that he has no non-compete clause. Samoa Joe is another name that's popping up as of late. So, AEW, man, is running full bore right now. And I'm loving every minute of it. I really am. I think, in my honest opinion, I think Tony Khan is really trying to run, the wrestling industry as far as maybe not a global aspect, but maybe more of a USA aspect, and obviously venturing out to maybe, the UK and so on and so forth. But, when WWE is global phenomenon, what it is, I mean, I think Tony Khan's definitely putting his feet into the mud, if you would say, as far as, keeping AEW around for quite a while, now acquiring Ring of Honor. I mean, this guy definitely wants to be a part of professional wrestling for a very long time. And so far, what he's done with AEW has just been phenomenal, hands down. Absolutely phenomenal. But this is my review of AEW's Revolution. I hope you guys are out there staying safe. Be careful, and remember, stay classic.